Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Big Shift. I've got an unbelievable guest. Next today is he knew John Gotti well. He's got an unbelievable testimony, and he also got acquitted of 3 murders, guys. I mean, I've got it from people who knew him back in the day. He was one of the most feared guys in Ozone Park, Brooklyn, back in the day. Hi guys, how are you doing? I've just got to say thanks everyone who's going into the subscription model, StephenGillen.com, all you guys out there who's getting the book. I've got another wonderful book that's coming out. Of course, my story is being made into a film. One last thing, I have to do this. On The Big Shift, we're all about empowering people and really healing the world, guys. Just a shout out to Scott and Marla out there in Arizona and our other friends in Canada who are doing wonderful things with this, guys. It's an intention stick which we want to give to certainly everyone around the world, but certainly every child around the world so they can live a life of positive intention. I want to put something else below in the links and that about the intention sticks, guys. Loads of children around the world, thankfully, we've been privileged to get them one of these. If you want to know more about this, please go underneath. There's going to be some links, guys. Thank you. My next guest is Robert Borelli. Hi, Robert. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. And it's an honor and privilege to be on your show.
It's wonderful to meet you, Robert. And as I said, you know, you're one of the guys I've spoken to. A few guys who I talked to over there, people who knew you in the younger days, John Alite, a lot of other guys, you know, they've told me about your unbelievable journey and that you was, back in the day where they knew, one of the most feared guys. Now, I know you've been acquitted of 3 murders and I know you've gone on to do really wonderful things and we're going to get to that. But I want to go back a little bit to the old days for the people out there so they know a little bit more. You was closely associated with Ronnie One-Arm Trucchio, right? You know,
Yeah.
very aligned to the Gambino family. Would you
Yeah.
like to tell us a little bit about how this started for you?
Well, for me and Ronnie, particularly, since we're kids, Ronnie was a couple of years older than me and a lot taller than me. So me and Ronnie go back from all the way to Eastern Parkway back in, I would say, let's say I had to be about maybe 14 years old. So we're talking about 52 years ago. So it's a long time. Anyway, I just gave up my age too. But anyway, so me and Ronnie went back a long time, hung out together. He was, like I said, older than me. He had my back when I was a young kid. And I was a feisty little kid, you know. I was a fighter type guy, you know. The neighborhoods at that point in time were separated, like blacks, Hispanics, you know, white people, Italians. And there was always clashes around, you know, going from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. And at an early age, I built the reputation to be a little tough kid. So people like that. And Ronnie was already involved with some of these wise guys that I didn't even know yet because I was just a kid hanging out in the street being a fighter type kid. And then me and Ronnie got close later on in the years, and from there we went up there. But Anthony Ruggiano, I don't know if you did anything with Anthony Ruggiano.
I know Anthony. I know Anthony. I know Anthony. You know, we're going to be speaking again very soon. I've already done a little interview with Anthony. I know you was very, very, very close to Anthony too. Yeah, and his father, Fat Andy.
Yes, yes. Okay, but so that's how it worked with me and Ronnie. Ronnie already was affiliated with them. I was just a kid. And then I would go to the clubs as a kid and work, you know, they would have card games. And, you know, the thing is amazing is these guys are really very super intelligent because what they wanted to do is make sure everybody who was gambling didn't leave the table. And the reason why is they wanted the game to keep going. They didn't want to stop the progression of the game. So they would have a guy like me come around and give sandwiches. Now, you've seen that on maybe The Sopranos. You might have seen that on a couple other, I'm trying to think, Goodfellas. So that's kind of what I did. And I was probably about 14, 15 years old doing that there. And then there's another guy, and I don't know how much we want to talk about his name, but was Blaze Carrazzo, and he used to have me run around picking up policy slips, and so that's kind of how I was introduced a little bit as a young kid. But I really didn't know a lot about that lifestyle until I became like 17, 18 years old.
Now I know, for instance, Ronnie went on to be a capo. Later, he went on to be a capo in the Gambino family, yes. Right? Now, look, I've done my research on you, Robert, as well as I've said, and they said, look, you know, if there was a kind of a toss-up between who was the tough guy between you and Ronnie, it was Robert hands down. This is what I'm being told, right? And I must say, you know, you was acquitted of 2 murders by the age of 20. Is that correct?
Well, one I was acquitted, the other one got thrown out. They couldn't. They needed 2 witnesses. They only had 1 against me. So they had, after a lot of years battling in court, they dismissed that case. But I did beat 1 case on trial with 5 witnesses against me. So that was kind of. I would say that would be my claim to fame in the Gambino crime family, because I was a guy that went to trial, stood up, didn't give no information, didn't give up anybody, went on trial for a serious case at the age of 20 years old. Well, I was probably about 22, 23 when we finally went to trial. So that kind of, everybody said, well, here's this young kid, man, on trial for murder with 5 eyewitnesses. He doesn't take a plea in the case, which most people would do with 5 eyewitnesses against them. And he fought it, he beat the case. And that was probably part of my reputation in the Gambino crime family. I call it my claim to fame in the Gambino crime family.
This is Henry Hill stuff, right? Now I know you've got a real connection to Goodfellas. We're going to talk about that after, right? But so you was a rising star really in the mob at that age, at 20, right? Was this how it was for you?
Well, basically, you can go back to the age of 18 years old. Somebody got killed in a bar fight, and I was wanted for the murder. And Anthony Ruggiano's dad hid me out for a year and a half, you know, because I was close friends with Anthony. And there was another fella, his name was Joey, and that was Andy's godson. So he hid both of us out all around New York, New Jersey, and a couple other places. So that was like where, I guess you could say, my reputation as a tough guy came, because somebody got killed. And, you know, that in them days, back in this, that was back in 1973. In them days, you didn't hear that kind of stuff. So I guess everybody was impressed by it. And I don't know.
Well, we know what it's like on the street. You know, it's very tough. It's very tough. You know, them neighborhoods are very tough. And we're going to go with, you know, you've had a really interesting life, you know, and you've turned the corner. But before we go there, I want to go a little bit more at the start. So what really drove you in the early days, Robert, to, you know, you was acquitted of murder, you was a tough guy. I know you was in the middle of a lot of heavy guys there. What drove you at this point? Did you want to be there? Did you have a father who pushed you? Was you groomed into it?
Well, I believe I was groomed into it. You know, and you know, my other part of my life is the transformation life. So I use that kind of discipleship how I disciple people today is how I was discipled back then. So there was this one guy, Nicky Carrazzo, who took a liking to me. He was one of the guys that had me hang out in his neighborhood when I was still in trouble for the murder cases. And I'm only 19 years old at the time, and he took a big interest in me. And I don't like to use the word disciple in this form, but basically that's what it is. He mentored me and groomed me. Matter of fact, he did so well of a job with me, spending time with me, walking around corners, explaining the lifestyle to me and all that there was times when I would go and meet with some people and I would talk to them, and they would go back and tell Nicky, it was like I was talking to you. That's the kind of impact that he had in my life. I loved Nicky, and I still love Nicky and Lenny. Both of them took care of me really well in them days. And And then things started changing later on, and we'll probably get into that later on.
Now, I've talked to John Alite, and he's told me a lot. Ronnie One Arm Terrazzo was involved in this case. He said some stuff about John. So John told me that after that, you was kind of partners with John. What happened there with that, Robert?
I'm not understanding. I'm sorry. I didn't understand that.
John Alite. Yeah, John Alite in the old days. Did you ever have any work with John, or was you a partner with John in the old days?
Not so much a partner with John Alite, but I was in prison in 82 to 84. When I came out in 84, before I went to prison, I was the guy in the neighborhood. Everybody, and like you said, they did fear me. I'm not proud of that today, but at that point in time, yes, my ego was big. My reputation was big. I demanded respect. Didn't command it as much, but as I demanded it, and that was my life. So Johnny, I think, was closer to my younger brother, Richard, at that time, because they're about the same age. I'm a little older than them. And Johnny must have heard a lot about me, according to what he told me. So when I went away and I came back, now he had the reputation. He kind of took my place when I was in prison. So when I came out, I heard about Johnny Alite, and I was wondering who this guy is and all that. So we did get close, but I didn't do a lot of things with Johnny, and this for a couple of reasons. So.
Yeah, that's what John told me. He said to you as the guy in the neighborhood before him, Robert. I'm just joining some dots here, right? So, what was, now, I know in these days you was involved in a lot of stuff, from hijacking, gambling, all the usual racketeering crimes. So, was it just the Gambino family that you was associated with?
Yes, I associated with just the Gambino crime family, but I met a lot of other family guys. When I went to Manhattan, Nicky would bring me with them, and they opened up a dice game, and then there was a lot of other families around, and there's quite a few of them. And I guess I had a charismatic personality because people gravitated to me. I was just a well-liked guy, but also in the same sense, with some of these bosses, well respected for, the things that they heard about me.
And you knew John Gotti Sr. well?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You knew John Gotti Sr. well? Did you know John?
They grew up in my neighborhood, so I was close. I knew his brother Jeannie well. Johnny was a little older than me. Jeannie and my sister used to hang out together on Fulton and Rockaway. I was closer as a young kid, with his brother Vinny Gotti. But when John climbed up the ladder, everybody knew who Johnny was. And, he heard some stuff about me. Matter of fact, there's a time that he actually sent for me because he heard something that I was going to shoot up the neighborhood where his club was, and wanted to talk to me about it. But because I wasn't a made person, I couldn't really talk with him. So I said, well, if he wants to see me, he has to go through Nicky, because Nicky was a made guy at the time. And nothing really came out. Nicky, if it wasn't for Nicky, I wouldn't be alive today. Let me just say that. Nicky built me out of so many stuff.
Make sure to subscribe, go into StephenGillen.com and sign up for more wonderful content to expedite, help, and support you on your own personal journey of success.